I was Diana Vance's loyal lapdog, utterly devoted to her for 6 long years. I swore I would marry no one else, and gave her everything I had. When she was lying in the intensive care unit, I, a man who never believed in any higher power, knelt and prayed until my forehead was raw and bleeding, just begging for her to be safe. I watched over her for days and nights without daring to sleep, and even gave her so much of my blood that I collapsed. The long scar on my side is from taking a knife for her. The ugly, hollowed-out patch on my leg where flesh is missing is from when I shielded her from a vicious dog attack. Everyone said I was madly in love with her, yet while I was on death's door after a car crash, she made a grand public proposal to my own brother. With a single dismissive comment, it was all just his unrequited fantasy. She turned me into a complete laughingstock. Later, I lost my memory. I remember everyone else, but I forgot her completely. And then, she was the one filled with regret, crying and begging me to bring back the old Frank she once knew. Today is the engagement party for Diana Vance and Leo Miller. One is the woman I once loved with all my heart. The other is my brother. And yet, I appear perfectly calm, completely unfazed. This is everyone whispering in surprise. After all, who in our circle doesn't know that I, Frank Miller, was Diana Vance's devoted follower, worshipping the ground she walked on for 6 years straight? I was by her side as she climbed from being the Vance family's illegitimate daughter to the head of the company. Now, it seems I just paved the way for someone else. Diana has fallen for my brother, making me the biggest joke in Manhattan's elite circle. In their minds, I should be a wreck, completely devastated and heartbroken. They probably expect me to be sobbing, begging my brother to give Diana back to me. Or maybe to be furiously confronting them both, demanding to know why they would do this to me. But I should absolutely not be acting like this, so utterly indifferent. I watched the couple with a blank expression, feeling not even a flicker of emotion. When the crowd started cheering for Diana and Leo to kiss, my eyes remained cold, and I even managed to applaud along with everyone else. My bizarre behavior left people completely baffled, and they began to whisper among themselves. Has Frank lost his mind? He used to be so obsessed with Diana. A man from his background, constantly orbiting her, completely shameless. How can he look like he doesn't care at all now? He's just putting on a brave face. You remember how he used to be. If anyone said a single bad word about Diana, he'd be on them like a bulldog, ready for a fight. Remember when she had that car accident? He stayed in the ICU with her for 2 days straight, refused to even blink, terrified something would happen. He even gave her so much blood he passed out. Honestly, you have to feel sorry for Frank. The woman he adored is marrying his own brother. Who wouldn't have a complete breakdown over something like that? I listened impassively as they recounted my years of grand gestures for Diana, my expression never changing. It was hard for me to even imagine that the man they described, the one who was madly in love, was supposed to be me. Diana, on the other hand, kept her almond-shaped eyes fixed on me, a storm of complex emotions swirling within them. She held her champagne flute, hesitating for a long moment before finally walking over. She stood there quietly, staring at my profile, her eyes filled with 1,000 unspoken things. Finally, they all condensed into a single phrase, "I'm sorry." As she approached, every eye in the room turned to watch us. I frowned, feeling a sense of discomfort, and replied without expression, "It's fine." And it really was fine. Who Diana wanted to marry had nothing to do with me. She misinterpreted my frown, sighing softly. "Frank, you're still angry with me, aren't you?" Watching this exchange, Leo's expression tightened. He strode over, wrapping his arm around Diana's in a clear display of ownership. He looked at me with a pitiful expression. "Frank, are you still mad that I stole Diana away? But love can't be controlled. Diana and I are truly in love. I know how devoted you were to her, and I'm sorry, but I can't just give her to you." Leo's words were coated in apology and humility, but his eyes shone with undisguised triumph and provocation. "That scar you got from taking that knife for Diana. She says it looks terrifying, and she feels terribly guilty about it." He sighed with false sincerity. "We're also worried your future wife might be put off by it, since it looks like a centipede. We'll find the best surgeon to have it removed for you." I rubbed my temples, feeling a wave of exhaustion, and said nothing. But Leo wouldn't let it go. "Are you angry, Frank? You know me. I'm just very direct. I don't mean any harm by it. I just want to make it up to you, because you're in such a pitiful situation." "I'm not angry. I sincerely wish you two a lifetime of happiness together," I said, and I meant it. Pitiful? The old Frank might have been pitiful, but the man standing here now simply didn't care. They both stared at me, stunned. When Diana recovered, her eyes flashed with an anger she couldn't contain. "Frank, Do you really mean that? Of course I did. I nodded without a moment's hesitation. Diana didn't look pleased as I'd expected. Instead, her face darkened completely, as if I were the one who had wronged her. Leo could barely hold a smile. He forced his lips into a grin and said, "Well, since you've really moved on, Frank, then I'd like to ask you to plan our wedding for us. After all, you're one of the most famous wedding planners in the business." His eyes were brimming with malice. If I were the old Frank, the one who was madly in love with Diana, a request like that would have shattered my heart. But now, with no memory of her, my emotions were a flat line, as if sealed in a vacuum. I watched their performance with cold detachment, listening to words that meant nothing to me. I calmly accepted Leo's request, even adding helpfully, "Just send me your requirements whenever you're ready. As for the fee, I'll charge you my standard rate." The smile on Leo's face froze solid. When my friend Kyle heard about it, he was furious. He called Diana a user and said she and a heartless bastard like Leo were a perfect match. It was from him that I learned more about the depths of my past devotion and obsession. Diana was an illegitimate daughter and was always the subject of gossip. But I, as a son of the Miller family, protected her fiercely. If I ever heard anyone speak ill of her, I made it my mission to make their life hell. There were certainly families more powerful than the Millers, and I was hardly the favored son, but people with something to lose are always wary of someone who fights like they have nothing to lose. My willingness to go to war for Diana made people think twice. A man of my standing, unable to go a sentence without mentioning her name, my entire world revolving around her. I once stayed up all night watching tutorials just to knit her a scarf, my usually soft hands pricked and bleeding. A single word from Diana could have me out of my warm bed at 3 in the morning, running any errand she needed. When she was set up and landed in the emergency room, I was the one who never left her side. I, a man with no faith, knelt outside that ER, praying so hard my forehead bled, begging any god who would listen to keep her safe. I gave her my blood until I passed out right there in the hospital. The deep scar on my side is from when I took a knife for her. There's a chunk of flesh missing from my leg because I instinctively threw myself in front of her when a dog lunged. When Diana was at her absolute lowest, I declared to the world that I would marry her and give her everything I had. And then, the first thing she did after securing her power was to get engaged to my coddled younger brother. While I was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for my life after a car crash arranged by her enemies, she was in Times Square proposing to Leo. About me, she had only one dismissive line. He was the one chasing me. It was all Frank's unrequited obsession. It had nothing to do with me. And when I woke up from that crash, the strangest thing happened. I remembered everyone, my biased father, my manipulative brother, but I had completely forgotten Diana. Now, listening to Kyle's righteous tirade against that toxic pair, I just said calmly, "That's enough, Kyle. Don't waste your anger on people and things that don't matter anymore." He stared into my eyes, stunned, realizing that when her name was mentioned, he saw only the coldness of a stranger. He shook his head. Wow, karma really is something. When Diana finally realizes she's lost you for good, she's going to lose her mind. And what would that have to do with me? I once loved her with a mad devotion, gave her everything, and she didn't just reject it, she trampled all over it. I'll consider all that affection wasted, and from now on, I want nothing more to do with either of them. I never expected Diana to show up at my door. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back instinctively. The thought of her touching me filled me with a physical sense of revulsion. Diana stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Frank, you really don't remember me at all? You used to love me so much." The complex emotions on her face were a puzzle I couldn't solve. It was the same look she had when I first woke up in the hospital and told her I didn't know who she was. She kept repeating that it was impossible. How could Frank forget Diana? She'd asked. Why not? Forgetting someone who is no longer important seems perfectly normal to me. I met her gaze, my own eyes cold and steady. "I really don't remember you. Maybe I never loved you as much as everyone thought, and that's why I forgot." She fought to control her anger, her voice dropping to a low, strangely gentle tone. "You once said that Frank would love Diana for a lifetime. I don't believe you can just forget like that." She seemed to grasp at a reason. "Is this because I'm marrying your brother? Is that why you're acting like this? Because you're angry?" I felt a sense of helplessness. I truly didn't care who she married. After a moment, I looked her straight in the eye and said with complete sincerity, "The past is over. We should both move on. It's for the best. I sincerely wish you and Leo a long and happy life together." My words seemed to enrage her. She shoved me against the wall, her lips crashing down onto mine. I just stared, my eyes wide and empty, as calm and lifeless as still water. I didn't respond at all. To Diana, it must have felt like she was kissing a corpse. Her passion quickly turned to stiffness. She opened her eyes, and their burning possessiveness was a stark contrast to my own placid, empty gaze. Diana pulled back as if she'd been shocked, saying nothing, just staring at me intently, as if trying to peer into my very soul. "What is it?" I asked, my tone cold. "Please stop torturing me like this," the once confident woman said, her voice now soft, almost a plea. I genuinely didn't understand how I was torturing her. I parted my lips, confused. After a long moment of thought, another possibility occurred to me. Maybe she had a first love, and I shouldn't be wishing her well with Leo. I cleared my throat and began again. "I'm sorry." I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, so I quickly continued. "In that case, I wish you a long and happy life with whichever man you truly love. Just please stop bothering me." The light in her eyes died. She searched my face one last time, and when she saw I was telling the truth, she turned and practically fled. Leo somehow found out that Diana had come to see me alone. He greeted me with, "I knew it, Frank. How could you possibly forget Diana?" He said it with a sneer. "After all, you were once willing to die for her. Your obsession was famous throughout our entire circle. But in the end, she loves me. No matter what you did for her, you still lost to me, didn't you?" He looked at me, gloating. "Did you know? The day she got the call that you were in the ER, she just found it annoying. I told her she should go see you, but she insisted on finishing her proposal. She said I was the one she loved, and she couldn't wait to make it official between us." I could clearly see the challenge in his eyes, but I just smiled calmly. "Is that so? That's wonderful. I wish you both happiness together." My reaction was obviously not what he expected. It was like he'd thrown a punch and hit a pillow. He sputtered, "Frank, are you deaf? Are you still putting on this act? Why won't anyone believe I lost my memory? Do they think my indifference to Diana is just an act?" I looked at him like he was a child throwing a tantrum. "What is it you want me to say? Do you want me to lose my temper? To scream like a madman and demand to know why he stole his brother's love? Or maybe you want me to beg him to give her back, just to satisfy his victor's ego? But why would I do any of that for a woman who is a stranger to me?" Leo was clearly furious. He glared at me. "Then stay the hell away from Diana from now on. She's your future sister-in-law. We've always been in love." I almost laughed. I may have amnesia, but I only forgot Diana. I haven't forgotten a single thing about my history with Leo. He used to mock me constantly for having bad taste, for falling for an illegitimate daughter with no prospects, and for making such a shameless spectacle of myself. And now he claims they've always been in love? I have to admit, he and Diana are a perfect match. They're both experts at changing their stories. I smiled. "Don't worry. I won't go anywhere near Diana. My best wishes to you both are sincere. Just stay away and don't inflict yourselves on anyone else." Leo's face darkened as he sneered. "Fine. Since you're being so generous, Frank, why don't you officiate our wedding? It would be a great way for you to witness your little brother's happiness." "I'm not an officiant," I said after a moment's thought. "But if you insist, I can do it. My fee is $50,000. Leo couldn't help but shout. "Are you insane? That's robbery." I remained calm. "If you can't afford it, you can find someone else." But I knew he wouldn't pass up such a perfect opportunity to humiliate me. Sure enough, after a few seconds of hesitation, he gritted his teeth and agreed. Since I had taken the wedding planning job, I did my best to create a perfect proposal, carefully considering every last detail. But Leo rejected it time and time again. I'd incorporate his feedback, revise the details, and then he'd demand I change it back to the original. He would even call me in the middle of the night demanding changes. He was clearly trying to torment me. Yet he'd say with false sincerity, "Frank, don't you want what's best for your brother? Do you really hate me so much that you won't even put any effort into my wedding?" Diana stood by during these calls, her expression complex and unreadable. She opened her mouth to speak several times, but always remained silent. After one round of revisions, Leo seemed to have a new idea, a malicious glint in his eye. "Frank, I remember you designed a whole wedding plan once, a really detailed one. Since you won't be using it now, why not give it to me? I had no memory of this at all." "I don't remember that." But Leo was insistent, making me search through a stack of old files. It's a waste not to. A good plan should be put to use. Finally, in the back of a bottom drawer, I found it. The cover of the proposal was a photograph of me and Diana. In it, the man was smiling, bright and happy, his arm wrapped around the woman's waist. He was looking down at her, his eyes filled with adoration. And even the woman's usually cool gaze held a hint of warmth. They looked like a happy, loving couple. The cover was inscribed with a few romantic lines, like something from a fairy tale. Without a second thought, I ripped the cover off and handed the binder to Leo. "Here it is. You two can use it. It would certainly save me the time of making any more revisions. My swift, clean action left Leo standing there, stunned. Diana's chest rose and fell rapidly, her mask of composure nearly cracking. She gritted her teeth, speaking each word with force. "You're so generous." I replied calmly, "It's nothing valuable. It's not generosity." Diana's face was a thundercloud. Leo's expression shifted several times, the smile completely gone from his face. He looked at me with eyes full of jealousy and venom. That same day, I got a call from my father. His voice was low. "Frank, you still have feelings for Diana, don't you?" Before I could answer, he continued, "After all, you chased her for 8 years. You don't have to pretend with me. I know you. When you care about someone, you don't just stop." His words made it clear he'd already decided I was still hung up on her. I gave a short, humorless laugh. "So, what's your point? Don't beat around the bush, just say what you mean." My sharp tone seemed to sting him. He was silent for a few seconds before speaking again. "Diana is with your brother now. It's not a good look for brothers to be at odds over a woman. You need to be more mindful of how this appears. Besides, Leo has had it so hard. As his older brother, you should be the one to step aside. Don't fight with him over this." I let out a cold laugh. "Your favoritism is so blatant, it's ridiculous. You knew how much I loved her, and you still let Leo get together with her. Why don't you call Leo shameless? He was carrying on with her while his own brother was dying in a hospital. Leo's had a heart? How can you say that with a straight face? Anything he's ever wanted, you made me give it to him. In this family, everything has always revolved around him. Anyone would think he was your only son." I had ripped away the polite facade, exposing all the ugliness underneath. "Just stop. You're making me sick." My father's voice trembled with rage. I hung up before he could finish. After a near-death experience, my only priority is my own peace of mind. I refuse to make myself miserable for anyone else's sake. After composing myself, I decided to go for a walk. As I passed a chic cafe, a lovely woman called out my name. She had a bright smile, and her sweet, puppy dog eyes lit up when she saw me. "Frank, do you remember me?" The woman in front of me hadn't changed much since high school. She was still gentle and pretty. She was the girl who, whenever I forgot my textbook, would place hers in the middle of our desks so we could share. She was the girl who cheered the loudest for me at track meets, who waited at the finish line to help me up and hand me a bottle of water. She was a uniquely bright spot in my memories. A wide smile spread across my face. "Long time no see, Jessica." She scratched her head, a little embarrassed, her eyes curving into happy crescents. "I can't believe you still remember me." "Why wouldn't I?" "Because," she said, her expression serious. "Back then, you only had eyes for Diana. It seems the old me really was obsessed with Diana. Everyone I talk to reinforces the idea that Frank couldn't live without her. But I'm glad I lost my memory. It's clear Diana was never worthy of that kind of love. She betrayed a man who foolishly gave her everything and waited for her." I calmly explained about the car accident, the serious injuries, and the resulting amnesia, and about Diana marrying my brother. As Jessica listened, her eyes filled with nothing but sympathy and concern, and she quickly tried to change the subject to something more cheerful. She was naturally a warm and engaging person, and her genuine effort made her easy to talk to. We had a wonderful conversation, and after we grabbed dinner, Jessica drove me home. As I walked into my apartment building's hallway, I sensed footsteps behind me. Before I could turn, a pair of pale hands clamped over my mouth. I looked closer and saw it was Diana. Her usually icy eyes were glistening, and her face was unnaturally flushed. Her warm breath was on my neck, making my skin crawl with discomfort. I tried to pull away, but she held me fast in an embrace that reeked of alcohol. "Diana, I think you have the wrong person." She was clearly very drunk. No matter what, she should have been looking for Leo, her actual fiancé, the man she supposedly loved. Not me, her former lapdog. "No, I was looking for you, Frank." Diana hugged me tighter, her voice taking on a childish, pleading tone. "Frank, why are you ignoring me? Why did you give her wedding plan to Leo? It made me so sad. And today, you were talking with Jessica, and you were smiling so happily. You haven't smiled at me like that once since you lost your memory. You have no idea how insane with jealousy I was. I wanted to cut off her hand for even touching you. I was getting annoyed. Diana, if you're going to have a drunken scene, go find Leo. I don't owe you any explanations." Seeing my tight frown and my cold, emotionless eyes, Diana's own eyes began to well up with tears. Her voice trembled. "Frank, how could you change so much? You used to love me. You promised me forever. How could you just let go of my hand?" A surge of anger rose in me. Even without my memories, wasn't I the one who was betrayed? How could Diana question me with such self-righteousness? What right did she have? Weren't you the one who let go first? The person who commits the betrayal has no right to talk about loyalty. You broke your promise when I was dying after that crash. You didn't care if I lived or died, and you were planning to marry my brother. Giving you that wedding plan seems perfectly appropriate, doesn't it? Can you please stop this hypocritical act? It's disgusting. No, she explained frantically. There were reasons for everything. The only person I have ever loved from the very beginning is you. You're the only one I've ever wanted to marry. As she spoke, she leaned in to kiss me again. Just then, a furious voice roared. What the hell are you two doing? I turned and saw Leo's face, contorted with rage. His eyes were like poisoned daggers, filled with a look that wanted to tear me limb from limb. His rage had completely overwhelmed his reason, and the mask of the charming younger brother was gone. He stared at me with pure hatred. You bastard! Are you that desperate for a woman? Do you have any idea that Diana and I are about to get married? You shameless piece of trash. Oh, that's right. You never had any shame. You've been chasing her like a pathetic puppy since the day you turned 18. You were too stupid to realize she never gave you the time of day. Your unrequited love made you look like a clown. The vicious words poured out of him, each one designed to hurt. Before I could say a word, Diana snapped, Leo, that's enough. I'm the one who came to see Frank. This has nothing to do with him. Great. So you really do love him. Leo was shaking with rage. So I'm a joke in all this, is that it? He saw Diana stand firmly in front of me, pulling me behind her for protection. He lunged at me like a wild animal. You son of a bitch. I'll kill you. You must be feeling pretty smug right now, huh? But before he could reach me, Diana shoved him back hard. Leo, are you even listening? I said leave him out of this. Caught off guard by her shove, Leo stumbled back. He started to laugh, a broken, tearful sound. Diana, do you even remember who your fiancé is? You told me you loved me. You said you wanted to marry me and spend your life with me. Hearing this, Diana shot a nervous glance at me. That's not true, Frank. I didn't mean any of it. You're the only one I love. You have to believe me. My expression remained placid. There's nothing to believe or disbelieve. I don't care. Diana, whatever is going on between you and Leo has nothing to do with me. Leave me out of it. My detached response clearly unsettled her. Frank, please don't say that. I can't bear it. I really can't. Hit me, scream at me, do whatever you want, but please don't just ignore me like this. Don't act like you don't care at all. Her pleas caused not a single ripple of emotion in my gaze. Leo suddenly started laughing, a wild, unhinged sound. Diana, do you really think he's going to forgive you after everything you've done? You probably don't even know, do you? The day of his accident, he was bleeding out, he almost died, and he was still muttering your name. The bastard has too much luck. He should have just died that day. He looked at me with pure hatred. You've always been beneath me. How do you deserve to have something I can't? Diana strode forward and grabbed Leo by the collar. What did you just say? Say it again. Her eyes were bloodshot with disbelief. Leo curled his lip into a malicious smile. I said, if Frank still had his memories, he would hate your guts. The day of the crash, he was covered in his own blood, and he was still clutching that cheap bracelet you gave him. And you couldn't even be bothered to show up. But, he said, looking at my blank, puppet-like face, and let out a sneer, it's not much better now that he's lost his memory. He doesn't love you anymore, Diana. At those words, Diana flew at Leo like a wild animal, punching and kicking. Normally, he would have been much stronger than her, but he didn't fight back at all. He just stood there and let her vent her fury on him. Leo's face was becoming a mess of bruises and blood. I finally couldn't watch anymore and shouted, that's enough. I didn't want a murder happening on my doorstep. Diana immediately stopped, looking at me like an obedient puppy. Frank, I'll do whatever you say. Can we please start over? I'll cancel the engagement with Leo. What? Leo cried out in disbelief. Diana, you're pregnant with my child. How can you do this to me? Cancel the wedding, humiliate me, fine. But are you really going to let our child grow up without a father? At this, Diana let out a cold laugh. I think I would know better than you if I were pregnant. Did you really think your pathetic little tricks would work on me? I wasn't drunk, and we never slept together. My security knocked you unconscious the moment you tried anything. Everything you think happened was just a drug-induced fantasy. Her already icy expression turned derisive, sending a chill through the air. I know all about you and that escort. I just didn't bother to call you out on it. We were both just using each other. So don't you dare put on this act of being deeply in love with me. It's nauseating. It turned out Diana had been caught in the middle of a power struggle within the Vance family. The legitimate heiress, Wendy Vance, was ruthless and would stop at nothing to drive Diana out. To protect me, Diana had used Leo as a human shield, diverting all of Wendy's attention and attacks onto him. My car accident had been Wendy's doing. Diana had been terrified and heartbroken, but she couldn't show how much she cared about me. If she had, it would have put me in even more danger. By acting completely indifferent towards me, even disdainful, she could keep me safe. That was why she made such a grand, public spectacle of proposing to Leo in Times Square. She knew Leo was a spoiled playboy with a chaotic personal life, desperate to find a respectable wife. So they made a deal, and that's where the engagement came from. And now that Wendy was no longer a threat, Diana finally felt safe enough to reveal the whole truth. After hearing it all, Leo was completely stunned, and he began to cry, begging Diana not to be so cruel. I know I was just using you at first, but Diana, I really did fall in love with you. But Diana showed no sign of softening. She firmly pulled her hand away from his. I never loved you. The only one I have ever loved is Frank. Her hopeful eyes were locked on me. Frank, can we start over now? I know I hurt you terribly, but I had to do it to protect you. I promise you, my own heart was breaking just as much as yours. Now, I'm no longer that powerless woman who had to stand by and watch the man she loved get hurt. Please come back to me. I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Looking at her sincere, pleading face, I just felt tired. Diana, I don't remember. Not just the memories, but the love, too. The Frank who loved you died in that car crash. The man standing here now feels nothing for you. To me, you're no different from a stranger. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice firm. So please, let's just let each other go. You've moved on, but who's going to let me go? Diana's eyes were bloodshot, and she let out a grief-stricken cry like a cornered animal. I won't allow it. I don't believe you can just stop loving me because you say so. From that day on, Diana kept me prisoner. She took all of my devices and posted guards around the clock to watch over the house where she held me. To prevent me from escaping, my hands and feet were bound in heavy shackles that clanked with every movement. But someone had carefully wrapped the cold metal in soft cotton where it touched my skin. Diana still had business to attend to, but she always returned at mealtimes to feed me herself. Spoonful by spoonful, she would watch me eat, a satisfied, almost sick smile on her face. Frank, if only it were just the two of us in the whole world, she'd say. Living like this forever would be so perfect. Diana seemed to have lost her mind, and not just a little. But in every other way, she was completely attentive to my needs. Besides refusing to let me leave, she catered to my every whim, showering me with expensive jewelry and watches, trying to win my affection. It was only when she was drunk that she would lose control, revealing her true, desperate self. As she forcefully stripped my clothes, her eyes roaming over my body, I felt no shame, only a numb emptiness as I stared at the ceiling. But then she would start to cry, hot tears falling onto my skin. She would gently trace the scar on my side, her touches careful, as if she were handling a priceless, fragile artifact. Frank, this scar, she'd whisper, you got this when Wendy's mother sent men to kill me. You got it protecting me. I know you were terrified then, but when I was surrounded, you still threw yourself in front of me and took that knife. You were in so much pain, but you forced a smile and told me it didn't hurt. You said as long as I was safe, it was all worth it. Her warm lips would press against the hollowed scar on my thigh, and she would say through sobs, when I was little, Wendy's mother set her dogs on me. I've been terrified of them my whole life. That day, when they tried the same thing again, you held my hands so tight and told me not to be afraid. And that's when the dog tore a piece of flesh from your leg to protect me. Diana would take a deep breath, trying to compose herself. I was living in darkness, and you were the only ray of light that ever reached me. You stayed with me. You warmed me. You melted the iceberg in my heart, Frank. No one could ever replace you. You planned our whole wedding. We promised we would be together forever. Have you forgotten all of that? She would ask, her eyes red. You love me so much. In contrast to her emotional storms, I remained a cold, indifferent observer. I would try to recall the memories she described, try to feel even a shadow of that intense emotion, but there was nothing. My chest felt hollow. Looking at her beautiful face, I felt only the confusion of looking at a stranger. Diana would finally break down, covering my eyes with her hands. Frank, please don't look at me like that, she'd sob. Don't look at me like I'm a stranger. It's driving me insane. I would sigh, helpless, with nothing to say. The silence of the room would be broken only by the sound of her desolate weeping. Frank, do you really not love me at all anymore? Please, can you just go back to the way you were? I'm begging you. Despite my coldness, Diana continued to tell me stories of our past every single day. Our first meeting in the rain, the first time we held hands on a hot summer day. Each time, she would watch my face, full of hope, searching for any flicker of recognition. But there was never anything. My expression remained blank. My voice was always calm, logical, and cold. Diana, you saw what I was like when I loved you. So you of all people should understand that I truly don't love you anymore. Everything you're doing is pointless. Perhaps I had never been so blunt with her before. She looked at me with a wounded expression, her eyes filled with utter despair. My coldness didn't deter her. Diana remained insistent that we would get married. I couldn't understand what she saw in being with such an empty shell of a man. Her expression was pure stubbornness. Frank, it doesn't matter that you don't remember. It was my fault, but we have our whole lives ahead of us. I know you'll fall in love with me again. And even if you don't, I can't let you go. We'll just be tangled together like this for the rest of our lives. The wedding was set for a month away. In the days leading up to it, Diana was a bundle of excitement and anxiety. She would tell me all about the wedding plans with feverish enthusiasm. The decor and the ceremony were all based on that old proposal I had written. The tuxedo was from the designer I'd admired most when I was 25. Even the ring was the exact style the old Frank had once described to her while holding her in his arms. She was stubbornly determined to create the exact wedding the old Frank had always dreamed of. Her eyes shimmered with tears. Frank, after all these years, I'm finally going to marry you. I'm so sorry I made you wait so long. Perhaps the old Frank, the one who had been so devoted and sacrificed everything for her, would have been overjoyed to hear those words. After so many years, his dream was finally coming true. But the me of today, devoid of memory and feeling, could only stare at her with empty eyes. The days passed slowly. I don't know how Leo managed to get into the house. He stood over me, his eyes filled with hatred. Frank, you're a hard man to kill. The car crashed, Wendy, and I planned so carefully, and it still didn't finish you off. And now you've seduced Diana into breaking our engagement, making me a laughingstock just like you were. His voice was shrill. I told you to stay away from her. Why didn't you listen? You worthless piece of trash. Like a man possessed, Leo lunged at me with a knife. I guess I'll just have to send you to hell myself. My hands were still in shackles, heavy and clumsy, making it difficult to move. I saw the cold glint of the blade as it plunged towards my chest, and my pupils constricted. But the pain I expected never came. A soft body had thrown itself in front of me, and I heard a woman's pained gasp. Blood bloomed across the front of Diana's white dress. She gritted her teeth, pulled the knife out, and threw it to the floor. She called for her security, who quickly subdued Leo and tied him up. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, and only when she was certain I was unharmed did she let out a breath of relief. As sirens wailed, the police took Leo away. Diana, who had been stabbed near a vital organ, was taken away in an ambulance. Even though she was unconscious, her grip on my hand was ironclad, and she refused to let go. Diana's injury was severe, and she was rushed into emergency surgery. She was holding my hand so tightly that it took the doctors a great deal of effort to finally pry her fingers open. This time was different. I didn't kneel outside the emergency room, praying until my head bled, begging for her to be safe. I just stood there calmly, hoping she would be all right. After all, she had been injured because of me. But there was none of the frantic, love-fueled madness of before. Leo was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to life in prison. He would spend the rest of his days behind bars. Diana pulled through the surgery. The first words she spoke when she woke up were, "Frank, I'm so glad you're okay." I was grateful. If it hadn't been for her, I would be the one lying in that hospital bed. But it was only gratitude. Looking into her eyes, so full of emotion, I felt nothing in return. Her wound was severe, close to her heart, and she had to stay in the hospital for at least 2 weeks for observation. For those 2 weeks, I stayed by her side, taking care of her with meticulous attention. She seemed to see this as a sign of hope, and one day she asked cautiously, "I'll be recovered soon. We don't have to postpone the wedding, right?" I was peeling an apple for her at that moment. I stopped and looked at her, my gaze clear and serious. "Diana, what's over is over. I'm grateful that you saved my life, and my being here is because of that gratitude. But any other feeling, I just can't give you." I took a deep breath, looking at her with frank sincerity. "I told you before, and it wasn't just something I said out of anger. The Frank who loved you died in that car crash. It's true that he once loved you, and it's just as true that I don't love you now. If you have any feeling left for me at all, then please let me go. Let's just leave the past where it is." The woman stared at me for a long, silent moment, and then she began to sob uncontrollably. In that moment, she finally understood. What was lost forever. No matter what she did, she could never get it back.